So that's in contrast to what we were seeing earlier about that earthly wealth. How blessed, verse 13, is the man who finds wisdom, for its profit is better than the profit of silver, and its gain than fine gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire compares with her. There's absolutely nothing in the whole world. No company shares, no gold, no silver, nothing can be compared to divine wisdom. And that comes to the man who submits, verse 11, to the discipline of the Lord, who humbles himself under the Lord's rebukes and reproofs, and obeys God's commandments from his heart, verse 1, trusts in the Lord with all his heart, verse 5, does not lean on his own cleverness, acknowledges God in all his ways. That man's a blessed man. He really is a blessed man. Long life is in the right hand of wisdom, and her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. That means when you're walking in the way of wisdom, you can never be at unrest in your heart at any time, because all her paths are peace. When I get into unrest, that means I have left the path of wisdom. Somewhere I left it. I spoke to a brother in a particular way, and I'm very much in unrest about it. I left the path of wisdom. Or somebody said something to me, and I'm very much in unrest. That means I have not reacted in the right way. That's why I'm in unrest. That's why I'm in unrest. That's not the way of wisdom, and it's God speaking to me through that unrest in my heart. You have left the way of wisdom, because wisdom, all her paths are peace. Always peace. That's why if you build a church with wisdom, there'll always be peace in that church. There'll never be fighting in that church. When we speak about a church where there's never been fighting for many years, you see, people don't believe it. But it's possible. If all her paths are peace and we proclaim wisdom in the church, there's bound to be peace, because all her paths are peace. It's where wisdom is not known and not proclaimed, just a lot of dry old Bible knowledge is dished out. You don't find peace there. And then, here we are told in verse 18 what that tree of life in the Garden of Eden really was. What was that tree of life? Wisdom was that tree of life. What was the other tree? The tree of knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge of good and evil is not the same as wisdom. Knowledge of good and evil, one can be clever and say that's right and that's wrong. But wisdom is another thing altogether. People can have knowledge of good and evil and still fight with each other. But you can't have wisdom and fight with each other. That is impossible. The tree of life, it's wisdom. It's that divine nature. That wisdom described in James 3, which is first pure and then peaceable. This is the tree of life which Adam was not interested in, which most believers today, unfortunately, are not interested in either. And the difference between Adam and Christ is this, that Christ was taken up with wisdom. It says concerning Jesus, the very first thing we read about Jesus as a child is that he grew in wisdom. The first thing we read about Adam is he forgot about the tree of life called wisdom and went after knowledge. And even today, most believers are interested in knowledge and not wisdom. Our pursuit must be wisdom. And happy are all who hold her fast. To hold her fast means the man who keeps on eating from this tree. The man who comes to this tree and realizes, I haven't understood everything yet, I need to know more, and who keeps on taking part of this tree. And verse 19, the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the deeps were broken up and the skies dripped with dew. The three words used there, all more or less meaning the same thing. That divine knowledge, not the knowledge of good and evil which brought death, but the divine knowledge, the knowledge of God, understanding and wisdom. And it says God founded the earth and established the heavens, and the fountains of the earth were broken open and the skies poured out with rain. through God's wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Now, when you read Genesis chapter 1, you know that it was through God's spoken word that these things happened. It was through God's spoken word that the heavens and earth were remade. And so we see that God's wisdom is revealed to us through His Word. And that is why it's only as we take God's Word seriously that we can have an understanding of God's ways. We have seen this verse before in Psalm 103 of the difference between the Israelites and Moses. And that happens even today among believers, this difference in Psalm 103 verse 7 where it says, God made known His ways to Moses, but His deeds or His actions to the sons of Israel. And even today there are those who can see God's actions and are impressed with it. He's healing the sick. He's doing a miracle, a physical miracle particularly. They are in the footsteps of the sons of Israel who saw God's actions. But to Moses, God was able to reveal something more than that, and that was His ways. God was able to teach Moses something of Himself, of His nature, and His wisdom. You remember when He told Moses, I will show you my glory, and He says, I will show you all my goodness. And it's the goodness of God which is His glory. And it's quite another thing to see that. It's something to see God's goodness and to be gripped by that in our lives. It's quite another thing to see the physical healing of the sick. And you find most believers are occupied with these physical miracles, and very few want to know, like Moses, God's ways. And here the book of Proverbs is not teaching us how to do miracles, it's teaching us about God's ways. And the only person who will be interested, really interested in knowing the depths there are in the book of Proverbs will be one who wants to know God more. Wants to know God's ways. There's no verse here that tells us how to raise the dead or how to move the mountain out of the way. But it tells us here what God's ways are. He made known His ways to Moses, but His actions to the children of Israel. And we see here in verse 21, my son, don't let these, God's wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, depart from your sight. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, because they will be life to your soul and adornment to your neck. In other words, this is the greatest honor that you can ever get. No president of any country putting a medal around your neck can be a far greater honor than to get wisdom. That's the greatest honor. And so many illustrations Solomon is using to try to show this is better than riches, this is better than getting the Paramveer Chakra or some medal or Bharat Ratna or something like that tied around your neck. Here is the thing that you need to have tied around your neck. Wisdom, so that we make it the main pursuit of our life. When you do that, verse 23, then you will walk securely, and your foot will not stumble. That means that God will not allow your feet to fall into Satan's traps. He will keep you from falling into the traps that Satan has lined up for you. When Paul said we are not ignorant of Satan's schemes, that's because Paul had wisdom, that he could say we're not ignorant of Satan's schemes. When you walk, your way will be secure, your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. And when you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, it is God's will for every one of us that our sleep should be sweet. Do you believe that? If you don't believe it, according to your faith be it unto you. But if you believe it, according to your faith be it unto you. I believe that with all my heart. It says there, that's God's will for me. That my sleep should be sweet. That I should not have any tension on my mind. Have you seen little children sleeping? You know why they sleep so well? They are not worried about anything concerning tomorrow. They are not worried about anything. Their sleep is really sweet. Think of that God can bring us to that place where we have cast our burdens on the Lord so completely, and we have trusted in the Lord with all our heart and acknowledged Him in all our ways, and are seeking after wisdom more than anything else, more than riches and honor and all the rubbish that people are seeking after, do it. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. That is the will of God. You won't be afraid of, it says here in the Living Bible, you won't be afraid of disaster, verse 25, and you won't be afraid of the plots of evil men. Disaster, robbers coming to the house in the middle of the night, or evil men plotting against you in your office when you go there tomorrow, you won't be afraid of a single thing. Your sleep will be sweet. We got to take that promise and say, Lord, I want that. We won't be afraid of anything. Freedom from all fear. That is the will of God for us. And so we find that our sleep also is a pretty good test of the condition of our heart. It is. Just like unrest, the way we sleep at night is also a pretty good test of the condition of our heart. We can think we are all right, but the fact that we are so restless at night proves that everything is not all right. Something is wrong. Your sleep is not sweet. Yeah, we have to ask ourselves, why not? And it's good to humble ourselves and go and ask God and say, Lord, is there something that is causing me tension, which I need to cast on you? I don't trust in you with all my heart, perhaps. I believe so many things in my head, but I don't trust in you with all my heart. I'm not saying that to condemn anybody. I'm just saying that to encourage everyone. Say, this is your birthright. This is our birthright. Don't let the devil take it away from us. Say, Lord, my birthright is sweet sleep at night. And don't be afraid of sudden fear, because the Lord will be your confidence, and He will protect you from falling into Satan's trap. He will keep your foot from being caught by Satan, from falling into a trap. And then he gives us some exhortation about getting into debt. Don't withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it. Don't say to your neighbor, go and come back and tomorrow I'll give it when you have it with you. Let me read that to you in the Living Bible. Don't withhold repayment of your debts. Don't say some other time, if you can pay now. You know what that means? You want wisdom? How many of us are serious about getting wisdom? Pay back your debts. Very practical, this business of getting wisdom. Pay back your debts. And don't say next year or next month, some other time, if you can pay now. If you can pay that shopkeeper for that bar of soap now, don't tell him to put it in a credit book and I'll pay you on the first of the month. You'll never become wise that way, I'll tell you that. This whole credit system is for fools, not for those who want divine wisdom. Those who want divine wisdom do not get into a credit system like that. They pay now immediately when they've got the money in their pockets. They don't get their name into the shopkeeper's book and get onto a credit list. That's the way people end up in a lot of folly later on. Don't say some other time on the first of next month when I get my pay, if you can pay now. That's something for us to remember. We are not to be in debt to anyone, and it's not just to those from whom we have borrowed money. The book of Proverbs speaks later on about the debt we owe to our parents. Do you know that every one of us owe a debt to our parents? If you calculate all the money that your parents spent on you and all the time that your parents spent on you, and I calculate the same, we find it's a fantastic debt we owe to them. And yet so many believers can take such a casual, light attitude towards the ones to whom they owe more than to any other person on the face of the earth, perhaps. They owe so much, but they take it for granted. They don't realize that we must do what we can to repay that debt to our parents in their old age. That's a debt. And a man who wants wisdom, who is wise, will repay that debt. And to neighbors, to the government in taxes. Taxes are a debt we owe to the government until we pay it. And the wise man will have no difficulty in paying his taxes. He's glad to pay his taxes. He doesn't want to cheat the government in any type of tax. No, he pays his debt to the government, to his parents, to neighbors, and to fellow believers. He owes no man anything. He makes sure that he behaves like God, who is never in debt to anyone. And I just want to say one other aspect of debt which is mentioned in the New Testament. It says in Romans 13:8, owe no man anything except to love one another, which means that because God has given us so much of love, we have a perpetual debt of love to others. That is, we are to take every opportunity to clear that debt of love that we have to other people in the church. That's the meaning of Romans 13:8. Owe no man anything except to love one another means I got to look at a brother and I got to see I owe him a debt of love because God's given me something of His love which I have to pass on. That's included here too.